Okay, this is a continuation of section 5.5, and these will be the last new formulas we learn for chapter 5 on trig. Okay, and these will be given to you on the test. These are called the sum to product formulas. It's when you have the sine of something plus the sine of something, or the cosine of something and the cosine of something, and those, the u and the v don't match. So for example, sine of 4x minus sine of 2x equals 0. They don't match, although I could probably use the double angle formula for this one. But the same is true on this one. They don't match. It makes it very difficult to solve when they don't match. Okay. But if they were written as a product, it would actually be much easier to solve. Okay, let's look at the first one. Okay, I'm going to use these formulas to solve this, although you could use the double angle formulas in this particular case. Okay, first of all, I'm going to think about this as u, and I'm going to think about this as v, and then I'm going to match it up to the formula up here that matches that format. Okay, that's going to match up to this one, the sine of u minus the sine of v, and the u is 4x and the v is 2x. I'm going to go ahead and just plug it in the formula as it's written. So I can rewrite this as 2 times the cosine of u plus v over 2 times the sine of u minus v over 2, and this whole thing is equal to 0. Let me simplify it, and then we will look at it. So 2 times the cosine of 4x plus 2x is 6x. 6x divided by 2 is 3x. Times the sine of 4x minus 2x is 2x. 2x divided by 2 is just x equals 0. Okay, now they still mismatch, but now they're written as a product and it's equal to 0, which means I can make each of these two factors equal to 0. So I can say that the cosine of 3x is equal to 0, and I can say the sine of x is also equal to 0. And then I can solve both of these using multiple angle idea. Okay, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and solve this. Okay, where's the cosine equal to 0? I'm going to write this two different ways. Okay, I'm going to do it the longer way, and then I'll do it the shorter way for people who prefer that. Okay, the cosine is 0 at pi over 2 plus 2 pi n, and also at 3 pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. Okay, let me look at the sine of x equals 0. The sine of x is equal to 0 at 0 plus 2 pi n, and also at pi plus 2 pi n. Okay, but I'm going to come back to this 3x equation. Because this was 3x equals these quantities, I need to multiply everything by 1/3, which is going to take my equation down to x equals pi over 6 plus 2 pi n over 3, and 3 pi over 6, which is pi over 2, plus 2 pi n over 3. And then I also have those two answers over there. So one way to write it would be to list all 4 of these answers. Okay, I'm going to write it a slightly shorter way as well. I'm going back to the fact that the cosine of 3x equals 0 and the sine of x equals 0. And this is just for people who know that sometimes you understand there is an easier way to write it, and you're welcome to do it that way. Okay, this cosine of 3x is 0. I'm going to sketch up here and down here. So it's actually at pi over 2. And if I say plus pi n, that's going to count the 3 pi over 2, and it's going to count all the coterminal angles. Okay, and then if I divide this whole thing by 3, I get pi over 6 plus pi n over 3 as the solution to my first equation. And then if I solve sine x equals 0, the sine is 0 here and here. So I could say that this is going to be 0 plus pi n, because that would account for the 1 pi and the 2 pi, or I can just say pi n. Okay, so this is another representation for the solution. Whether you list a bunch of stuff out like this or you make it shorter like this, these are equivalent solutions, and I will accept both of them. Okay, let's try one more sum to product. Okay, this next one, it says sine of 7x plus the sine of x equals 0, and it's that one has a 7x and one has an x on it. That is the problem for me. Remember to think about this as my u and this is my v, and then I'm going to go back up to my list of formulas and find which one matches that format. So sine u plus sine v is that first one. Okay, and if it were cosine, I would just use the other ones. These are given to you on the test, so you don't need to think too hard about it. Okay, so if I do the first formula, I'm going to move it up though because I'm out of room. The formula says 2 times the sine of u plus v over 2 times the cosine of u minus v over 2 equals 0. Oh, I wrote v instead of x though. 7x minus x. Okay, and just make sure you copy it very carefully from the formula because some of them switch their sines and cosines. Okay, so 2 times the sine of, was it 8x over 2 is 4x, times the cosine of 6x over 2 is 3x equals 0. Okay, and again, it still looks bad, but at least it's a product now, and it's equal to 0, which means the sine of 4x equals to 0, and the cosine of 3x is equal to 0. Okay, now there's one thing that's going to make this much, much harder. Sorry. Okay, in this case, my domain is limited from 0 to 2 pi, which often makes it easier. In this case, it's not going to make it easier. Okay, so let me think about where is the sine equal to 0? The sine is equal to 0 at 0, and it's equal at pi, and it actually continues on from there, and I'm going to keep that in mind because I want my final answers to be between 0 and 2 pi, but my intermittent answers might not be between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, now I'm going to go to my cosine of 3x equation. Okay, the cosine is equal to 0 at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. But once I times everything by 1/3, I'm going to create some extra answers. So I'm going to put a dot, dot, dot while I think about this. Okay, now let me look over back at my sine equation. If I divide by 0, or not, if I divide by 4, 0 divided by 4 is 0. Pi divided by 4 is pi over 4. These are both between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, but here's the issue. Okay, if I had kept going, if I had written 2 pi divided by 4 is also between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, what if I had said 3 pi? 3 pi over 4 is also between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, what if I did 4 pi over 4? That's also okay. 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4. Okay, 8 pi over 4 is 2 pi. That's too high because there's a parenthesis on 2 pi and it can't equal to 2 pi. But all these other answers are valid answers. I'm going to simplify them and then I'm going to look at my cosine equation. So 0 pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, pi, 5 pi over 4, 3 pi over 2, and 7 pi over 4. Okay, now let me look at my next answer, my next list of answers. Okay, I have 3x equals pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, and it's going to go on. It's actually going to go on 3 times as long as I think it's going to go on. Okay, if I times everything by 1/3, now I get pi over 6. I get 3 pi over 6. Okay, what if I kept going? Pi over 2, that would be 5 pi over 2. 5 pi over 6, that's okay. Okay, if I kept going, that would be 7 pi over 2. So 7 pi over 6, that's still okay. 9 pi over 6 is okay. 11 pi over 6 is okay. What about 13 pi over 6? 13 pi over 6 is higher than 2 pi, so this answer is not okay. So instead of 2 answers, I actually got 6 answers. I got 3 times as many. Okay, let me simplify them and get rid of some repeats. Okay, so I got pi over 6. Okay, 3 pi over 6 simplifies to pi over 2, but I already wrote pi over 2, so I'm going to not rewrite that again. Okay, 5 pi over 6 is okay. 7 pi over 6 is okay. Okay, 9 pi over 6 simplifies to 3 pi over 2, but I already wrote that, so I don't need to write it again. And then I have 11 pi over 6. Okay, so all of these are the possible answers that will satisfy the original equation from 0 to 2 pi.